They need the money to survive because basic things in Nigeria is no longer basic. The girl who thinks ordinarily she can become a HK and become successful if she goes to Lagos would not ordinarily want to become a HK, would not ordinarily want to do hookup if the country is normal. Those who go into fraud would not ordinarily want to do fraud if the country is normal. But these are the things that we've allowed ourselves to do wrongly from the angle of negligence by our leaders and ourselves and the poor leadership style we've chose. And we found ourselves at a crossroad that is very difficult to choose, a crossroad that we would not come out unless we begin to take things back in and absorb ourselves from this crazy and toxic materialistic perspective we'll begin to look at life. In Nigeria, the cost of the living is trying to kill the living. It is not just a thing that can be pinpointed and said to be tied to a particular thing. There are a whole lot of reasons why it is like that. The agricultural sector of the country has suffered a whole lot. It has suffered from many things. The discovering of crude oil has also seen a whole lot of persons neglect the agricultural side of the country and found themselves in different ventures that they shouldn't be ordinarily. The cost of the living is trying to kill the living for obvious reasons. We have few farmers who are farming to the best of their potentials. The potency of the agricultural system in Nigeria has not been harnessed one bit. Like, it's still very, very low. We don't have the best of agricultural practices in the 21st century to aid mass production of crops. We don't really do much in terms of farming nowadays. We have fewer and fewer persons trying to still see to it that there's sustained farming. We have people, having this idea of urban migration, and people sold the myth that you have to go to Lagos, you have to go to Abuja, you have to go to Asaba, you have to go to Onitsha to get to make it. You have to go to Owerri for you to get to make it in life. I understand the whole idea of making the quick money and trying to see that you can buy things. But you will discover that by the time you come to make this money in Lagos, you make this money in Onitsha, you make this money in Abuja, things will not get better. A country can only be successful when it has lots of people at the grassroots, at the base level, supporting the foundation. What are the foundations that a country needs? A country needs farmers. Not just farmers who are toiling in vain, farmers who are toiling with the best of resources they can get. What happens in the country is that we think we can still sustain ourselves the way we used to farm 200 years ago, the way we used to farm 100 years ago. The soil texture is changing, the topography of our lands is changing, the climate change is having its impact on the people, and we are becoming more and more populated as opposed to what we ordinarily were 50 years ago, 80 years ago. And we need new ways of looking at things, we need new ways of doing things. What happens to the tractors that can aid agriculture in Nigeria? What happens to the bulldozers and the farm implements that can see to it that agriculture is better practice in our part of the world? We don't see them. They are non-existent. They're just there. We have ministers in this with the concerns of this type of ministries that almost are doing little or nothing because their hands are either stifled or they belong to a particular political system that see to it that integrity becomes an exception rather than the norm. Integrity should be the norm, but it is seen now as an exception, and it is a problem. What about insecurity? What about the people in the state that is called the food basket of the nation, Benue State? The state has seen the highest level of insurgency in recent years, and What has really been done? How many persons have been ready to take back their country? We have vast lands here and there scattered across the country, but with the thing as insecurity, with the thing as corruption being practiced, how are things going to get better? The issue in the north and in the northeast, and the level of insurgency and corruption going on down there, and the level of banditry, is also to prevent the free flow of production of agricultural stuff, and then to prevent the whole idea of mining by the government. So what happens? You find this level of banditry, this level of insurgency in the northeast, to allow certain men and women with small minds to carry on with the attacks of illegal mining and the likes of that, and with the whole idea of also capturing lands and planting farms that will not ordinarily benefit the people. So that when a thing like insecurity is not being settled in a country such as Nigeria, we have people who would continually benefit from such devilish acts, but who also would be responsible for the downfall of a whole lot of things, a whole lot of persons. Look at the current state of the country. If a ministry that is saddled with seeing to it that agriculture is being revamped and being given its best shot is not doing what such a ministry is expected of, what do you expect? There will be poverty in the land. There will be continuous famine in the land, because everybody now knows that they need the money to actually survive. But then the meat that has been sold to them will not last for long, because they need the money to survive, because basic things in Nigeria is no longer basic. The girl who thinks ordinarily she can become a HK and become successful if she goes to Lagos would not ordinarily want to become a HK, would not ordinarily want to do hookup if the country is normal. Those who go into fraud would not ordinarily want to do fraud if the country is normal. But these are the things that we've allowed ourselves to do wrongly, from the angle of negligence by our leaders and ourselves, and the poor leadership style we've chose. And we found ourselves at a crossroad that is very difficult to choose, a crossroad that we would not come out unless we begin to take things back in and absorb ourselves from this crazy and toxic materialistic perspective we'll begin to look at life. As a politician, as a leader, as a businessman or woman, how much can you finish in a lifetime? How much can you spend in a lifetime diligently? How much can you spend from natural purchases and things needed to keep you going? How much can you spend? Beyond keeping things in the bank and thinking you are rich, beyond stashing cash in your house and thinking you're rich, how much can you spend? How will anybody want to invest in a country that is so unstable, a country that is so corrupt, a country that is devoid of security on many fronts, moral security, cultural security, ethical standards that will see to it that, when I come to a country, when I come to a place like that to put my investment and do my things will ordinarily go well. We have fewer and fewer farmers, so that the turnout of the production is lower than the expectation of the people. We have more persons to feed and few persons who are actually farming. And even those who are farming are stressing their lives out, because what a tractor can ordinarily do, you have 20 men doing that, and then they have to go get drugs for themselves. They have to go get medication, for themselves. They will definitely fall sick. They will have to eat more and a couple of things. But if we embrace technology, if we embrace the things we ought to do, if we embrace a thing as having light. Those days in secondary school, I remember when we're being taught about what are the factors that affect the agricultural system in the country. It's a question that used to come out those days in WAEC almost every year. Either in WAEC and geography, you get to see them come out. They get to ask you what are the factors that affect agriculture in any nation. You see, lack of infrastructure such as roads, lack of access to markets, lack of electricity, lack of farming implements, lack of the right seedlings, lack of the most advanced form of fertilizers that cause little or no damage to the crops or to the land and the likes of this. Lack of those days we used to call them agricultural extension this thing commissioner centers. We had one in Okonde in Boki where I grew up those days, and research centers ordinarily, botany has come to be given a backspace in the country, but it's the study of plants. It's as important as anything. Zoology is also a thing that has been left to, just crumble, but it is very important because a country that survives largely on plants and animals without the so-called debates of vegans and the likes of this trying to see if one is a vegetarian and the likes of that. The courses mentioned previously, botany, zoology, and the likes of these are courses that should be given serious attention. Aquatic studies or something like that in the university. These are courses that are considered as very, very crazy and very, very jobless courses. It is because we look at the idea of going to universities in Nigeria, to go to universities to ordinarily get a government paying job or a salary based job, that we begin to look down on these courses. You don't have to end up working in a zoo to become a zoologist. You don't expect yourself to end up working in a forest reserve to become a botanist. There are a whole lot of things we can do. The trees around our countries in Africa, the trees around our villages, what research have really been carried out, and how well have we come to find, how well have we come to interrogate and see to it that the stuffs we have around us are actually being utilized to the best of our abilities. How many research institutes do we have dedicated solely to the purpose of researching and documenting these type of things? The African leader, Amir Kakabra, got to actually know his people when he was actually doing jobs like this in the countryside when he came back from Portugal. It was in his ability as a scientist to interrogate with the people when he went on a national census as to know the plants and animals that are within the geography of his country, that he, got to know the people personally and know their problems, so that when the country he was trying to lead and liberate and bring into freedom had a fight with the Portuguese in his country, from his knowledge of the science of plants and animals and his agricultural prowess, he's called he's an agro engineer or something in that particular line. He was able to, tell the people, for us to really fight these guys, for us to really be independent, we have to feed ourselves. We have to grow our crops, we have to grow our stuffs, and we have to see that this works. Same thing that happened during the coconut revolution. These persons depended solely on themselves when they were cut off from the rest of the world and left in the island to die. But that was not what happened. They were able to use coconut to do a whole lot of things, from provision, from getting fuel for themselves to doing a whole lot of things. And this is what we need. We need to debunk the myth of materialism. We need to take things slowly. We need to kick against fraud. I see a whole lot of skits trying to promote, the HK kind of idea. It is also sad, and it's also annoying that things like hookup, things like fraud, email scams, and this would become so appealing to a large chunk of people, that this is now being consumed comfortably, and not just being consumed. People are now giving it legitimacy. Directly or indirectly, consuming stuff like this is just sad. There's the Plutomanian stuff, there's Sinzu money, and then there's a couple of things around this content and stuff like this. While it is a reality that this has been our part of lifestyle for a couple of years now, it doesn't make it legitimate. It just goes to show how bankrupt we are becoming morally and ethically, and how we are beginning to promote the things we ordinarily shouldn't be promoting, and how we are giving legitimacy to things that shouldn't be in the first place. For we to have a country that can provide for its people and feed its people, more persons have to be told the dignity of labor. It reminds me of Booker T. Washington. How did he come about the whole idea of revolution that sought to eat that as the first African American to be educated? He wasn't just an educated African. He was educated in the sense that he had to tell the people no nation will stand unless it decides to stand. And how can it stand? By the labors of our hands, we will eat. Any nation that want to depend on other nations to feed it should be ready to pay the price, should be ready to pay the consequence, should be ready to face the consequence. What are the consequences we are facing at the moment? Because we are becoming highly materialistic, needing more than we ordinarily need. Things are definitely going to increase. We need Italian doors when we live in Africa, and we've not been able to fix basic things. We are importing doors, and we're importing chairs, we're importing tables, we're importing televisions, we're importing cars, we're importing almost everything we can see to it that we fix the internal economy of the country first before we go out. A thing as cheap as toothpick, a thing as little as lighters, a thing as common as matches. Check where they are being produced. How will a country grow when agriculture is not given what it's ordinarily deserving, the place it's ordinarily supposed to be? How do you want to get cotton to make clothes? How do you want to get leathers to make belt, shoes, bags? How do you want to get rubbers to make latex, to make the different stuff that we can make out of this? How does a country want to work? How does a country want to thrive and make progress when it cannot, sustain itself? And it's not really making efforts in real time with urgency to see that things get better. Because believe it or not, cost of the living in Nigeria is trying to kill the living, not just in Nigeria, in most African countries. What sense of independence are we even claiming to? Every now and then, if Ghana is not celebrating, Nigeria is celebrating. A thing that gets to also annoy me in many ways, the whole sense of independence, a thing that shouldn't even have been in the first place, but we have to come to accept reality. But how independent are we? What are the crops we have in our farms? How are we developing them? Our maize we've been using for 2,000 years ago, how have we gone about, the genetics behind these, the plantain, the bananas, the yams we have, how have we developed them to see to it that we still get quality, but at the same time get a better yield to, get the country working? If you travel from Onitsha to Lagos, you get to see the last vast of land. And if you by chance leave Lagos through Ijebu-Ode into Ibadan, you also come to understand the vast land we have. And if you leave Ibadan heading to Abuja, from there you get to pass through Kogi, you get to pass through a whole lot of places, and you get to see what we are blessed with, the kind of land we have been blessed with as a country. We have not even started making use of the lands. In Boki, we have a whole lot of persons currently doing deforestation, and with no real intent of, seeing to it that the place gets transplant and the likes of this. How does a country want to work when you've been sold the idea of materialism? There's more to life than money. There's more to life than possession. There's more to life than accumulating things. Things like love, things like empathy, things like sympathy, things like a park to sit down, things like good food to eat, things like a well-built house, and not the clutter like Lagos has become, or the damages we've come to see that has become, the town plannings we've had around our lives and our places. When are we going to accept the fact that we are limited? We need to calm down. We need to face our basics. We've made luxury too important than necessary. There are basic things that we need to do as humans that we have not done, and we are now making luxury look normal. Look at the basic housing system in the country. What's the culture behind it? It's a culture of luxury and a culture of materialism. Basic things should be met first. Running water have not been provided, and we are having Italian doors. Our roads have not been fixed. We are importing Italian shoes. Our weather have not actually been attended to, and we are importing clothes from various parts of the world when we can actually start where we are. I'm not saying when one has the money, one shouldn't, but how does that help the economy? How many persons are currently farming? And how many persons are farming well? How many persons are doing the things they ought to do, and how well can they do that? And how wrong are we doing it at the moment? What are our leaders saying? What are they doing? How are we tasking them? How are we asking them questions? The money they get to borrow every month to do things we don't understand. The lifestyle we live in the country, from our leaders down to us, is not a life befitting of our culture and our current reality. I always ask this question: if my family has a business and the business is about to crumble, and we have come to an agreement that we have to borrow money or we have to lend money to see to it that we revive our family's business, and then we actually get this fund. But a few of our brothers now decides, to take this money and go clubbing, buy cars and build houses. How would that sound to the rest of the family members? It will sound so absurd, so crazy, so stupid, so ignorant of them to think of in the first place. And almost so unbelievable a thing to really happen. But that is the landscape we find ourselves as Nigerians, as Africans, whereby we don't put, though when I use Africa here, it's on a very, very broader scale, that we don't put our people first. We don't put our people at the hem of affairs. We don't put our people as the focal point of whatsoever we are doing. We are still not patriotic enough. That is why when Decay says, until a Nigerian becomes the president, we are just here doing ourselves. Different people take turns to govern the country. Listen to what he has to say.
Every time I ask, people tell me Nigeria became independent in 1960. And furthermore, to show she was truly free, she became a republic in 63. Meaning the queen was no longer head of state, meaning that we were now masters of our fate, meaning that power over Nigerians could now only be held by a Nigerian. It was why we sang and danced in the night, why we lit fires that burned through the night, why we chose a flag colored in freedom, for now we would be kings in this our kingdom. But our first head of state was Igbo, and the next, though a soldier, also Igbo. Then Angas ruled, followed by Hausa, and then came the turn of Yoruba. Then Hausa came back for a term cut short, when power was taken by an Hausa gunshot. Then Gwari claimed his turn to rule, but a mandate stolen was his downfall. Then Kanuri came, and it's quite probable that he'll still be ruling, if not for that apple. Then Yoruba returned, not once, but twice. Then Hausa returned, but died in peace. Then they left us a while to worry and wonder. And when it was over, Ijo had power. And after him came that titanic shift. And now we can see that Hausa is back, leaving me with this troublesome thought: where in all this is my own president? For where I was born is not where I'm from. And where I'm from is not my home. So when the tribes gather, I often wonder, who will I fight when you're both my brothers? Nobody asked when we were children, before we play, are you a Muslim? We shared a space that nobody claimed, but now you ask me to choose a side. When we were students, nobody asked if North and South could share a desk, if East and West could study together, but now you tell me that I'm a stranger. Stranger, yes, to these ways of thinking that tribe is everything. The Niger and Benue, they meet in my hand. I'm not an indigene, but this is my land. And this is my language. I speak nothing else. My home is here. I know nothing else. My tribe is my nation. I am nothing else. And this is my country. I have nowhere else. And so, though people are quick to assure me, to tell me this country I live in is free, deep in my heart, I know that freedom, my freedom, is yet to come. When no one will question my origin, when no one will call me a non-indigene, when no one will kill me because of my faith, when no one will cheat me because of my state, when my state will be wherever I live and will change whenever I choose to move. The day I find Not a Nigerian president, but that a Nigerian is finally president. And so, while the flag of ethnicity still flutters over this land of two shining rivers, and the tribes take their turn to misgovern my country, I look to the future, for I'm not yet free.
You could hear the lamentations of Decay until a Nigerian becomes president. Until a Nigerian becomes president for Nigerians all, we will continue to deceive ourselves with this sense of weak sense of patriotism. We allow the tribe take over in a very, very negative form of patriotism, and we become bigots, we become nepotistic, we become all we can become, but not the right thing. Yeah, it's true. You can see Nigeria as a geographical position. You can see Nigeria as a geographical expression, rather. You can see these things as what it is. You might not believe you're in Nigerian, but you are in Nigeria at the moment. Let's forget how we got to be brought together, how we got to, get to see ourselves all packed together. The most important thing is that we are here now together. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do, my people? I ask, what do we do? We must see to it that we get better. We must see to it that we get to grow. We must see to it that we have the country at heart. We must see to it that those courses that are of great importance to us, things like anatomy, things like chemistry, things like physics, things like biology, things like mathematics, things like medicine, things like nursing, things like law, things like engineering, courses that ordinarily speak to the day-to-day activities of life. We have to see to it that these courses are actually studied well, which brings me to the idea of education. And when we come here, we just even want to cry. We just want to cry. It's so sad. It's so annoying. It's so disgusting and infuriating that we are still deliberating in the 21st century whether people ought to be educated or not, whether people need basic roads or not, whether basic amenities should be given to people, whether things that should be common should remain common or should become an exception, whether railways should be built and whether schools should be subsidized and whether students should be made to go to school. When we begin to ask questions like this, it shows we've already lost it. And I wish we find ourselves back and tell ourselves the truth of what really needs to be done. That Nigeria, my country, your country, is sitting on a time bomb. And that if we don't do anything, if we don't work hard enough, if we don't see to it that we ourselves tell ourselves the truth about ourselves and stand and look at ourselves and say, as I look at myself in the bathroom naked every day while taking my bath or while using the restroom, and I need help, and we need help as a country, we're going nowhere. We're going nowhere. We have to begin to look at ourselves as a collective, as brothers and sisters. And we have to start telling ourselves the truth. Our brothers and sisters in government stealing from the public purse remains a tragedy that we have come to live by, we have come to accept. And it's a problem. People die on a daily basis because of lack of basic things. Things leaders should have seen long time ago and fixed. Things were not ready to even fix. Things were too comfortable in such level of discomfort. Nigeria provokes the believer in me. And I'm a believer. I believe in change. I believe in possibility. I believe in endless growth. But that's not also the entire story about the country. We have farmers and investors and businessmen and women and people of goodwill who have actually tried to see to it that, they come out and try to see how the country works, but they cannot do it alone. They cannot do it alone. They need support. They need good policies. Because, like Decay said, the politicians in office hold the farm and the seed. For to elect is to give the elected the power to decide whether security operatives can murder citizens and walk away free. Politicians in office hold the knife and the yam and the knife. For to elect is to give the elected the power over life. These things are things we should look at. Choice of leaders, who we get to elect down there, and how things get to go and how accountable we can be It is not enough to have leaders. We also have to be good followers, asking questions where needs be and the likes of that. Outside of this, we are going nowhere. We are heading nowhere. We are going nowhere, I tell you, as a people. It's just sad. It's just sad that we claim to be this civilized and we claim to be this developed and we claim to be living in the 21st century and things are just like this. It breaks me. It breaks me on multiple levels and on different body parts. And it is depressing, but should we say because it looks as though corruption is not leaving anytime soon and it has been around for a very long time, so we shouldn't speak out, we shouldn't try to see our best? No. The fact that the country is in such current situation, the fact that Africa is in need of emancipation by its own people and not by foreign aids is enough already to call for an awakening and awareness. And like Jesus Nyerere will say, everybody should pick up the flickering torch of Africa's freedom and fan into flames and see to it that it is lifted up and lifted for good. Until we do this, we labor in vain. My name is Biringkpa Obinna Emeka, and I'm your brother, your friend, and a fellow human being like you. If you like this video, please do share, do like, do comment, and tell somebody to tell somebody to tell somebody that you saw a video like this and you liked it. Thank you for subscribing. See you on the next one.